Saturday the 31st of May 2025. Just doing a job here and taking a wee break and a cup of coffee. I do eat late in the day because I don't be hungry until about 4 or 5 o'clock. One medium meal does me. And so good to have it. But the thing is that Gerry Adams has been awarded €100,000. And it was reported as £100,000 sterling in some of the media. No, it's €100,000, which is roughly 85 or 6,000 pounds sterling. Now, the allegation that was made against him with the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, was that there was a fella called Donaldson. Can't think of his first name. It doesn't matter. And he certainly was hanging around with the IRA, and he was hanging around with all the Republican people and all that, but he had some personal problem, as people often do, and he started touting, as to say, to the Brits. Now, informants are a part of Irish history, and Michael Collins said during the Irish War of Independence, "We have informers." And some of his people, like Kevin Boland, said, "No, we haven't." No. He says, "We have." "How do you know we have?" Says he said, "I know because there was all his informants. I can figure out mathematically that there is 1 or 2 informants here in Dublin." And that was back in 1920s. They have to be here. That's statistically impossible that we don't have them. And then he devised a situation of giving out information and watching the reaction of the security forces. And it got to them, and they started acting on putting surveillance on people or maybe watching at some place. And then he began to figure out who it was. And they were warned, and most stopped. But it's in a book on him that I read on him. But one lad wouldn't stop, and he was shot. And funny enough, Collins ordered a bit of money be given to his widow. Collins was an unbelievable statesman. You know, when you think of it, it wouldn't happen in most other places or with most other people, but that's in the book anyway. I can only tell you that. Now, the thing about Gerry Adams is, no matter what, under our law, I'm not saying I agree with the law, but under the law in Ireland and in Britain, and it's the same law, and it's partly rooted in the common law of England, you can't turn around to... I meant to say about Donaldson. Donaldson was shot dead in the Republic, in Donegal. He wasn't shot dead in Northern Ireland. And his body was found by Gardaí in Donegal, and that brought it under the jurisdiction of the Irish courts. This was in the courts in Dublin. So the BBC alleged that Gerry Adams ordered or consented in or was implicated in the order to kill Donaldson. Now, they alleged then that his reputation as being a Republican activist, and that they had privately spoken to people who confirmed that this was true, is what they mainly relied on to prove or to defend a case. Adams took the case. I think he was looking for €200,000 or thereabouts. He got 100,000. So, but their defence was that this was largely true. But you cannot rely on an unidentified person. This is hearsay. You cannot say, I believe that he's guilty because so-and-so said it, and you don't name that person. You don't name the person. Oh, we were talking to him now, and he's very convincing. That's not evidence. Evidence is all legal means exclusive of mere argument that tends to prove or disprove any matter of fact, the truth of which is subjected to judicial examination, and includes testimony, admissible hearsay, documents and things. And the thing is about admissible hearsay is a very strict rule. There are times the comments of others who are not produced in court are acceptable. An example of that is that a woman will say, and this is one example that is very common, it's in all the books, a woman who is raped will say, and runs away and stops somebody on the road and say, "I'm after being attacked," that's evidence. The fact that she said that is evidence. Or a person who who was injured and is dying and says, I'm after being shot by John Henry McGorty, that statement has evidence in it. There is evidence in it, depending on its weight. It doesn't mean it's proof, it's just, it is evidence. But you can't come along and make a case in civil or criminal law based on what someone said that it will not come up or come forward. And we know that in many cases with terrorist organisations where they exist, people will not testify against them. And that's a dilemma the state and the politicians have to deal with. That's what elections are for, to elect the right parties that will handle that. So no matter what, now don't move out in your mind for a while, no matter what Gerry Adams is or isn't or anything else, how can you accuse him of being ordering a murder when you can't produce any evidence, only circumstantial, only that he's known to be high up in Sinn Féin and all of this? I mean, it can't be. Now, I'd go on to another thing. If we take the late Jimmy Savile, or we take Rolf Harris, Savile wasn't convicted, but it's beyond doubt that he was a paedophile and that he was taking advantage of children. And in the case of Rolf Harris, he was convicted. And possibly if Savile had lived long enough, it was an awful pity he didn't, he'd have been convicted as well. But still, in either of those two cases, you couldn't turn round and say that he killed somebody that went missing. You know what I mean? You couldn't say that Madeleine McCann that was missing, he killed Madeleine McCann. You could suggest it perhaps, or you could make it after he's dead, but you can't really say anything you like about a person who has a bad reputation if you have no evidence at all. I mean, that's just fishing. You cannot do that. I'm sure you could make an awful lot of allegations against me. People have come up to me and accused me of you wouldn't believe what they've accused me of. And I don't have time to be pursuing them, and some of them have nothing anyway if you were to sue them. But, no, that's that. Now, the other thing that came up in the trial was, and the judge told the jury that they had to decide that his good name only started in 2016. I have a problem with that. How can your good name start at any time other than the date of your birth? Now, I make it clear now, because they'll misrepresent everything I say, particularly the Sinn Féiners. Oh, you're wrong, and they'll get it all wrong. No, I'm saying what the BBC did in relation to Adams cannot be done. That's illegal. The only issue there is how much he's entitled to. You cannot blame a person for the ordering a murder if you haven't evidence. And you can't blame, we'll name people who are murdered by the IRA. Garda Jerry McCabe is one. Private Patrick Kelly and others. You cannot say that any of the head people in the IRA, Martin McGuinness or Gerry Adams, he denies he was in it, but he was connected with that way of thinking anyway, and carried all the coffins. But you cannot say they ordered it. I mean, you cannot say it. It's not, you haven't the evidence, and you have to put up with it. You can allege that their activities encouraged it and that they may have been, but you can't directly accuse them. Now, that might seem very not fair to most people. Now, how could you come along and accuse Rolf Harris of attacking a child in Scotland? And if you have no evidence at all, you have to have some evidence. And if you don't, you join the queue. That's it. Now, the point about good name when it starts, it appears to me from reading the article about it in the paper that Adams's defence said his good name starts in 2016, and the judge told the jury, that his good name starts in 2016. How can your good name start any time other than the date of your birth? Now, supposing, thank God, I got away a lot of times. I was driving, and often driving a bit fast. Supposing I'd killed some person by accident, I wouldn't have meant it. It would gnaw at me to this day. God help people. anyone that accidentally kills somebody, even though they're going a bit mad, is in a sorrowful state, unless they're complete asses altogether a bit. But supposing I deliberately hurt somebody, kick some person, some healthy boy on the ground, and kept kicking him until I hit him in the head that he was permanently damaged and he's not the full thing. Can I live that down? Even if there is a trial. The case against me might not be that I didn't defend myself in a row, but that I went too far. Can I turn around now at my stage in life? That's all in the past. Can you? Where you actually set out to kick him and hurt him. But I think in the case of Gerry Adams, it looks to me like they could have went to his date of birth, because he was never convicted of anything. He was interned. That's a different thing. I would have said that the decision to start his good name in 2016 is wrong in law, but I would have said from my knowledge of the facts, even he started at his birthday, what evidence have they? So that's the story. We are all bound by the law. Now, I want to move away from Gerry Adams' case completely. It's the people of Britain pays it, and the people who pay a television licence. It's not the BBC. And the legal costs are astronomical. But should there be a law of libel at all? Should there be a law of defamation, which is the Irish situation now, or slander? They're all under defamation now. Supposing somebody publishes public about me. Val Martin, we know Mary Boyle over in Sligo. I wasn't there at that time, but I was over in that country after that. Murdered Mary Boyle. Fair. She was a young girl that went missing and never was found. Is it defamation? Sure, no one will believe it. And is my good name damaged by it? I could just say that's nonsense. The other thing that often amazes me is if that was published about me, that I killed that girl. Well, of course, my family would distance themselves from me, and people who know me would shun me. That has to be said. But I would rather have that said about me and published in the Irish Times and let me do whatever I want after than lose the top of my finger or lose an eye. If I got 1 million, I wouldn't give that eye away. And if I got another 1 million, I wouldn't give this one away. In fact, I wouldn't give an eye away for all the money in the world. I'd rather have me 2 eyes. I wouldn't give the top of my finger. I left an employment in McInerney's and Bluebell in Chicore because everyone was losing fingers in the equipment. There was no health and safety or guards on the equipment, protective things. I got afraid because I seen the fingers going down into the yoke that collects the sawdust. So I certainly wouldn't give the top of my finger for any money that you could get for your good name. In other words, my own body and my health is 196,000 times more important to me than my good name. Sticks and stones will break me bones, but names will never hurt me. Would it make much difference if there was no law at all? Should nobody believe what they'd say anyway? Would anyone care? It's a good name an asset. Why can't you show your good name on a set of accounts? If you're running a business there as a sole trader, why can't you put down all your buildings, your land and everything? Then, oh, my good name. Well, actually, my good name is quite good when it comes to paying money because a lot of people let me do work for me and come to me when it suits them, looking for the money. They use me as a kind of a bank. So I have a good name with paying up. On the other hand, I drive a tough bargain, mostly. But, so it's there, it's an asset. Would you put it in as a value? It's very tenuous. It's very, very tenuous. You can put it in as a intangible fixed asset like goodwill or whatever. But could you? I'm not so sure. My view of life is the least you get into the courts, the better. If you can be successful in life and never stand in a court, you're better off. That's easier said than done. And you have to have courts. You couldn't go on if you hadn't have courts. If you didn't have courts, you couldn't go on like that either. But the least of them, the better. Anyway, that's all I can say. I just have to mention Gerry Adams in this situation. It's easy for the BBC to make these programmes when they're not the ones paying. Government bodies paying out, and this is happening all over the place. If people want to get onto any politician, and certainly there's another thing about the Gerry Adams case, being a politician probably should have weakened him a bit, because a plague on all their houses is what I say. I give them some abuse here. I never tackled him. Well, he's not in there now. I tackled Sinn Féin. Some of the members are giving me off that they really hate what I'm doing to them. I'd say he's for migration. And I have also accused him of being pro-Castro. I heard statements published by him that Fidel Castro had a good system in Cuba. And I'm telling you, he is wrong. WRONG. And I want to debate with Gerry Adams on that. No problem. He's wrong. And the party he had a big influence in, although I don't know how much now he has, is pro-mass migration. And they're wrong in that as well. And they got their arses kicked in the referendum when the people said the woman's place is in the home, as well as everything else, and they refused to change the definition of marriage. I don't know, and I often ask the question, and by pushing at Sinn Féin, I forced them to give me an answer. What is this woke madness all about? This is not part of Irish culture. Now, I met a lad the other day who I know is a committed Sinn Féin supporter, and they have a lot of supporters. And he said, "You're wrong." I said, "Why? How are you going to keep out the migrants? How are you going to keep them out? You know, in other words, how are you going to keep them out? The state haven't done it up until 2004, no problem. The first thing you do, you refuse to sign the documents in the EU that allows the migrants to come here, sent here by Germany. You stop paying the dole. You give them no dole. They did it in Denmark, and it cut the migration away down. You stop giving them houses, free cars, free driving lessons, free services on the cars. That's my answer to that. Anyway, I think I've dealt enough with that, with the good name. I'd say in some ways you probably have to have some law to protect a certain good name, with kids especially. Be very, very serious if I could make an allegation against a young boy or girl, or I would say a young person of 22, and say they've done something. Supposing I said that Mary Jane so-and-so is pushing drugs, and she's pushing drugs, you know, and it's not true. Wouldn't do, or maybe looking for a job. So I suppose, you know, you have to look at the two sides of it. Anyway, that's the thing. The BBC accused Gerry Adams of being ordering or being directly involved in some way in the murder of Donaldson, and it had no evidence. And they relied on, you know, the fact that he had a bad name or something. I think under the law, even your name is gutters, and you have a lot of people now, I'd better not name any names because still cases coming up, Father Brendan Smith and also. But if you accuse Father Brendan Smith of stealing money out of the church, could he sue? I think he could. The fact that other things he did doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean you can attack him on anything that comes into your head. I don't think you could have that either. Right, folks, for less than 20 minutes. Comment underneath. So, is Gerry going to throw a party? One of the things you can say about his award is, if Britain never invaded Ireland, he'd have got nothing. So it's an ill wind that blows no good. As to say, we'll see you back soon. Thank you.